Sorting through the many perspectives takes work. The seemingly never-ending opinions can get noisy. But what if we choose to change our vantage point? Think bigger. Dig deeper. Change the dialogue. Discovering the truth above it all. It's time to elevate the conversation.
I gotta know, are you ready to learn something that truly might make you question if everything you know is a lie? Like, have you ever learned something before where you're like, I thought like that was so real, but it turned out to be completely fake, and for something now you're like questioning all the random things in your life that you think are real? This might be one of those things. Have you ever gotten on an elevator before? You're by yourself, you get on an elevator, you're just like, you know what? I want to go on this elevator alone. What do? Yeah, you hit the closed door button, right? It's a little button on there. It's got two arrows pointing towards each other, normally a little line in the middle. It's like you close the door. Well, what if I told you that button, it does nothing? Like that button, it doesn't actually close the door. That button does not make the doors close any faster whatsoever. Like seriously, it actually does nothing. And regardless of why they are there, the button is there to make us feel like we have some sort of control over the elevator doors, even though we don't. And we all fall for it so much that you probably don't even believe me right now. You probably are thinking right now, no, Coleman, you are wrong. But I had to do a little bit of research. I looked it up, and it is most likely true. On most elevators, the button doesn't actually do anything. And they actually have a good reason for it, because if you think about it, the reason why they don't really do anything is because they want to give people, regardless of circumstances or issues that they might have in their life, they want to give people enough time to cross from outside of the elevator to inside the elevator without the door maybe closing on them. So it's really a good reason on why they don't have those buttons actually work, but we all think that they do. We all think that we do, and we all like the idea of having a little bit of control of the circumstances when we're getting on and off of an elevator. So if the button doesn't work, then why is it there at all? The reason is control. You and I, we like control. We like thinking that we can influence and change things around us, even if pressing the button does absolutely nothing. Sometimes our world can kind of feel like that. Sometimes our world can feel like we're pressing a button trying to do something, but it's not actually doing anything. And in fact, when we have a feeling of control, it doesn't really seem like something that we would describe our life by. Like so much of the time when we think about the life that we live, we would say that we are not in control. We'd use words like calm or control, but that's probably not the words that you use to describe your life. You probably use things like chaos or out of control. And all you have to do to see this is scroll through social media for a little bit, and you're going to see the chaos that's in our world. All you have to do is turn on the notifications on your phone, and you're going to see how out of control our world truly is. And I'll give you an example of one of the things that is out of control the very most. One thing that we really want to control, but we have no control over it. And that is the future. We want to know what will happen. We want to know how it's going to happen. That way we can have confidence and be confident in the way that things are going to turn out so that the future is not uncertain. Because when it is uncertain, we end up feeling anxious or we get fearful. And all of a sudden, when we're anxious and we're fearful, all these nagging questions pop into our head like what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Things like, what are we going to do after my parents split up? Things like, how am I going to pay for college? Things like, what if I don't get to go to my first choice of colleges? What if I don't even get in to my first choice of colleges? In high school, especially now, can feel like we are repeatedly pressing the door close button on an elevator and nothing seems to be working. That feeling of uncertainty can honestly be overwhelming because if we're being honest, none of us like to feel out of control. None of us want to constantly feel like there are no answers, nowhere to turn, and nowhere to go. And in that unknown, where do we turn? Who or what do you go to in that moment? And you might even find yourself asking the question, is God even there when there's so much uncertainty? So, the way that these nights work is we do small group questions in the middle of my talk. So here, we're going to pause now. And I'm not going to talk. You guys, there's going to be some questions that your leaders have on their phones, and you guys are going to talk about the very beginning of this. Now, real quick, like David was saying, look around the room. There's 18 tables set up right now. It's a lot of people in one room. So, monitor your volume a little bit because even if you finish the questions, doesn't mean every group finishes the question. So please keep it down just a little bit so other groups can focus. There's going to be a 10-minute timer behind me, and in 10 minutes, I'll be back up here, and we'll continue on talking about uncertainty. All right, guys. Now, when we talk about the future being uncertain and some of the fears that come along with that, there's a lot of reasons to be uncertain about what the future is going to bring. Whether it's about you don't know what you're going to do with your life, you don't know what your just next step is, you don't know how you're going to get through the current step that you're on. There's a lot of things to be uncertain about. But instead of hearing from me for this section, we're going to watch a video from Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams, she is an expert when it comes to trauma therapy, and she's going to talk about high school students and when they experience uncertainty, what goes through their mind. So go ahead and take a look.
Why is uncertainty so unsettling to high school students? I think uncertainty is actually unsettling for all of us. So let's look at what uncertainty is. Uncertainty is the result of having very limited knowledge about something, about an event or an experience, which makes it difficult to control, even plan for, manage, or predict a future outcome, which can be really unsettling. So let's face it, change is hard for so many of us, especially the change that happens all of a sudden. It can throw us off balance. And most of us are creatures of habit. I know that I am. And for high schoolers who, if you think about it, they have a lot of routines established by other adults, parents, teachers, coaches, and routine can be comforting. So when life deviates from our plans, it can feel like we're losing control, which can lead to anxiety or fear. And as a therapist, I want to tell you that both anxiety and fear are natural reactions to uncertainty. What is happening in society that's contributing to such a heightened sense of uncertainty among high school students? So there have been many cultural and societal changes that I think have contributed to this feeling of anxiety among high school students. So the first thing that immediately comes to mind is social media. So don't get me wrong, I love technology and I truly believe that social media has a ton of benefits if used the right way. However, there are a lot of pressures that go along with living in the digital age. So as many of my teenagers tell me in the counseling room, they feel like they're getting exposed to so much more content and information than we did, and that's so true. So some of this information is good, but some of it isn't good. And even the good stuff, they tell me, can add pressure to an already frenetic phase of life. So social media has a way of cultivating pressures toward perfection and comparison rather than connection, which has been found to drive anxiety among teenagers. Additionally, from a mental health perspective, it's important to feel our feelings. And the other problem with technology is used excessively. For teenagers, it can be an escape from feeling their emotions, which can hinder their ability to build emotional resilience. And the last shift in our culture that I want to mention is the increase in parental stress. So as much as teenagers pretend to hate rules, I find that rules help them because it brings structure and brings about a sense of safety. So teenagers not only need, but want the most important adults in their lives to lead them well. But what if those individuals aren't feeling well? Let's face it, life is feeling more stressful these days, so the likelihood of this being the case is pretty high. So when the adults in their life are going through their own stressful situations or their own emotional struggles, because the pace of life feels so frenetic for the adults, that also trickles down to teenagers. Is uncertainty a bad thing? Why or why not? This question makes me smile because I think no emotion is bad, but it can feel bad, especially in the moment. Uncertainty is a great thing, I believe, if you embrace it. Otherwise, it can slow you down, it can be really paralyzing, and it can keep you stuck. So there are many benefits to embracing uncertainty. It can help you learn to adapt and overcome life's challenges, which can build your resilience and your ability to cope with future challenges. What would you say to a high school student about uncertainty? The people that you've looked up to have embraced uncertainty and probably used it to grow and even become successful. So the one person that comes to mind for me is U.S. Olympic gymnast Simone Biles, who experienced something called the twisties in the Tokyo Olympics. So the twisties, to my knowledge, is like vertigo, where your perception of where you are in space is completely off. So much so that you don't even know where the ground is until you're close to crashing into it. So Simone had to step away from the Tokyo Olympics and she stopped competing. And she wasn't sure if she could compete again. In fact, her trainer said that she shouldn't compete again. She was uncertain. And that uncertainty almost led her to permanent retirement. So since her return to competition in the Paris Olympics, she's won multiple gold medals. And here's the thing. She says that she still has that fear, but she pushes through. So high schoolers, if you're feeling uncertain, please know that you are not alone. And this is what I really want you to know, that even in the face of uncertainty, you can feel afraid and be courageous at the exact same time.
All right, let's bring it back up here. You see, the Bible is a library of history and poems and songs and letters, and it addresses the things that we're talking about quite a bit. It addresses uncertainty. And Psalms is a collection of ancient poetry written by a few different people, and it's really there to express emotion. If you read the book of Psalms, you see so much emotion, so much human emotion built into the text. And what we're going to look at today is written by an ancient king named David. He wrote, "Happy are those who make the Lord their trust, who do not turn to the proud, to those who go astray after false gods." You see, this legendary King David, this man who was incredibly famous in his day and age, he was someone who had been through a lot of good times and a whole lot of bad times. See, at one point, David was this national hero. But then another point in his life, he was running for his life and hiding. His life was a roller coaster full of ups and downs. He had seen a lot of chaos. And in that, David learned that if he always had to be in control of his peace and of his happiness, then he would never experience peace or happiness. David understood that he could not trust in perfect outcomes. Instead, David said his peace and his happiness came from trusting God. This is what I think David was getting at. You see, David understood that life was full of uncertainty. David understood that the door close button doesn't always work. And then that uncertainty can cause us to turn to things that could ultimately do more harm than good. So instead of stressing over what could not be in his control, David realized that trusting God in every situation was the best decision. It's this trust versus uncertainty. You see, David, he encourages us to do the same, to place our trust in God, because here's the thing, trusting in something or someone always means giving up some level of control. And we move over from this trust side back to uncertainty. Here's the problem with trying so hard to be in control is when we try to control so much uncertainty, it just creates more chaos in our life. That is what David was trying to get at when he mentioned turning to proud or false gods. He was implying that in our futile attempt to manage so much uncertainty, we create even more chaos. That some of us feel this every single day. We're like, we want to have friends, but good friends are really hard to find. So we end up hanging out with people that maybe we shouldn't, and we end up finding ourselves in trouble day in and day out. Sometimes you might find yourself not getting enough playing time on a certain team. And so instead of trusting the process, you cop an attitude, and all of a sudden things start getting worse. They're not getting any better. We create more chaos trying to be in control. So David suggested we do this. David invited us to trust. David said that when we decide to do this, when we decide to find, when we will find our peace and happiness, when we trust God, we will find our peace and happiness. David is saying that faith is the key to dealing with uncertainty. So what does this look like? What does this look like for you living your daily life and trying to grow in your faith in Jesus? Considering what we talked about today, I want to encourage you with 3 steps. Your first step is name the uncertainty. Put language to your situation. Where do you find yourself trying to control the chaos? Where do you feel uncertainty or feel fear about your future? What's the chaos that's in your life? Write it down. Pray it out loud. Whatever it takes, identify it and express it. 2, invite God into the chaos. Instead of just trying to take control over the chaos in your life, I want you to take a deep breath and invite God into it. And the best way to do this is through prayer. I wrote a brief prayer that this could help you when you find yourself in the middle of chaos. You want to invite God in. A simple prayer like, God, you care about every part of my life. So I understand that you know my desire for control, especially in this part that I'm struggling with. Thank you for caring about me so much in this area. Help me to trust you in the midst of chaos. I want to seek you first. Will you show me the steps I need to take? And I will trust you in those steps. And will you please give me peace and grow my faith? A simple prayer like that in the midst of chaos could change your life forever. Step 3 is take a step of faith. Guys, we talked about this over the last 4 weeks as we went through Unfinished. I mean, you guys might remember we talked about the leper who took one step towards Jesus. Sometimes it just takes one step. It takes the very first step towards Jesus to ultimately get rid of the chaos and experience true happiness and experience true peace in your life. But you're not going to experience it by staying where you are today. If you are uncertain about your future, if you're anxious about your future, if you don't know what the future is going to look like, that is okay. It's okay to be out of control. But when you find yourself in the middle of chaos, you need to name the uncertainty, invite God into the chaos, and take a step of faith. We can have faith in Jesus when everything else feels uncertain. And that confidence can lead us to live in a different life as we trust him fully. So now you're going to go and break out into your groups one last time and answer the questions that your leaders have on their phones.
Sorting through the many perspectives takes work. The seemingly never-ending opinions can get noisy. But what if we choose to change our vantage point? Think bigger. Dig deeper. Change the dialogue. Discovering the truth above it all. It's time to elevate the conversation.